What's up, Red Letter Disciples? We're back with another great episode. I'll be joined in a moment by my friend, Pastor Chris Johnson, co-host of the Red Letter Disciple, and we've got a mission with this podcast. I know we get silly sometimes. I know we get crazy sometimes, but the mission of this podcast is we want to challenge you to be a greater disciple of Jesus wherever you are. Because when the world sees you as the great disciple of Jesus that you are, I really believe it's going to change. Today's episode, we've got a really great guest. His name is Clayton Greene. He's the executive pastor at Summit Collaborative in North Carolina, that in his day job, he gets to help the 49 churches. Come on, somebody, that Summit has planted. How awesome is that? But a few years ago, while celebrating the Christmas season, his daughter, in the midst of all the busyness a day before Christmas, asked, "Why does Christmas feel so much more like it's about presents than it's about Jesus?" Wow. And in that moment, Clayton decided he's going to do something to help his daughter and his family remember what the Christmas Advent season is all about, and accidentally invented a product that not only has helped his family, but tons of families and even churches across the nation. So we're going to talk about that. And I promise you, we're going to get into a heated discussion right off the bat of why having turkey at Thanksgiving is either a must or is it a must? We're going to find out. Can't wait to introduce the Red Letter Disciple audience to Clayton. But first, and I'm saying that in the spirit of Julie Chen of Big Brother, but first, we can't do any of this without the team at Red Letter Living. I love getting to work with this team, and we create resources to help individuals and churches become greater disciples of Jesus. And today we got a gift for the pastors and church leaders out there. We call it the super simple, easily doable 5-step guide to growing your small groups. And you can pick it up at freeredlettergift.com. Healthy churches, you know this, are marked by many characteristics, but one of the most common is, are your people connecting in relationship in small groups, life group, connect groups, whatever you want to call them, Bible studies. Every pastor knows that it's important, yet a lot aren't too happy with where their current church is in their small group ministry. And here's the good news. You can grow your small groups. We've helped more than 1,000 churches so far. It's very doable. It's not as hard as you might think. I'm not saying it's no work, but I'm saying it's not hard work. So let's do this. You can grab that free resource at freeredlettergift.com. Free download there to help you grow your small groups. Hey, if Red Letter Disciple is important to you, influential, helpful to you, if you find it funny or just worthy of 5 stars, would you please go give us a rating on whatever podcast platform you're watching or listening? And make sure you follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode, because we're almost 50 episodes in, but we're going to keep this thing rolling. So having said that, let's keep it rolling. Let's do this. All righty, today on the Red Letter Disciple, we got Clayton Greene joining us. Clayton is an executive pastor, the director at Summit.
What does that mean?
Collaborative. Listen to this.
What is it, an executive pastor?
So I don't know. Every executive pastor is a little different, but his day job is actually getting to help the 49 churches that Summit Church has planted.
That's a lot of churches.
Yeah. I'm wondering why they haven't done 50.
We should quiz him and see if he knows all their names.
Right. But not only is he in ministry, Clayton's also a dad and a pastor, and he has a heart to see his kids truly discover Jesus and what Jesus is really about. So he's got all these cool products that actually come out that have not only helped his family, but helped families and churches across the United States. And so Clayton Greene, welcome to the podcast. And I have no idea why Chris's arm has been around shoulders. I feel we're getting close here. And so
after how many episodes is it now?
50 something, right?
50
it's
something.
crazy.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
You smell great.
Thank
all
you.
Right, go ahead.
I would want to say thanks for having me, but I am a little upset that I didn't get to be in the room and have some of that brotherly affection as well. So next time we'll get in the same space for this.
Yeah, where are you at? Where are you located?
Don't tell him. He will come and hug you, and it's always weird. So,
by the end of the podcast, I'll be breaking into that door behind you, just so you know.
Durham, North Carolina. And if you come out of that door, which is a closet, I'm going to be really, really impressed.
I love it. I love it. Clayton, hey, man, thanks for being on the show today. We've connected a couple of times, and kindred spirits, both are in the ministry, but also spiritual entrepreneurs. And so navigating those waters. And so I want to get to your products in just a minute, because I think they're really fascinating to help to help families and everyday disciples really refocus on what's important in life, which I think we need every day, but especially around the holidays, it gets a little wonky. And so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But I'd love to know, you create a lot of products around like holidays. Like, what's your favorite holiday and why?
Yeah. And this is a hard thing for me to pick and come on the record for, because, the right answer should be Christmas.
But
because
it's Groundhog
of
Day. It's Groundhog's Day, isn't it?
Yeah, that's second. But I'm actually a huge Thanksgiving fan. It kicks off the season. There's kind of the foods that I like, savory foods a little bit more than sweet foods, right? So the turkey, the dressing, we kind of like try to do the whole thing. A couple of years ago, our family started doing a turkey trot.
Nice.
Zach, I don't know about you, but people who like to start things.
Yeah.
So we actually, in our old neighborhood, started a turkey trot for the neighborhood. And we actually, at its peak, had 50 people come out and run with us. Moved to a new neighborhood last year. They already had one here, so I didn't get to start a new. I didn't want to start a rival turkey trot.
You don't want to do that as the new neighbor, man.
The real turkey trot.
Yeah, so we just came in and did that. We like to watch the Macy's parade. My parents come into town. And then, of course, we do the whole weekend thing where then we start decorating and everything for Christmas. But so Thanksgiving is my pick, and it should be yours as well.
Wow. Okay. I like that. I like the confidence there. Are you a turkey, mashed potato, like traditional Thanksgiving dinner? Because there's people since I moved back to Nebraska, there's more people that they don't do turkey. They'll cook steaks. There's one guy that's like, oh, I do brisket every.
Yep.
I'm like, come on, man.
We stopped doing turkey.
Really?
Let me. Hold on.
You don't do a turkey on Thanksgiving?
Listen to me. Listen.
Are you American?
Sacrilegious.
How many times do you go to a 5-star restaurant and the maitre d' comes out and he goes, "Today we have our award-winning slow-cooked turkey"? No, you don't go to any restaurant ever in the history of mankind is the number one dish turkey.
And you shouldn't go to a restaurant on Thanksgiving. So like your point of like it couldn't be. I didn't know this is like, pardon the interruption. I'm ready. So listen, this is precisely why you should have a turkey on Thanksgiving, because it's not out at a restaurant. It's not like a Michelin star situation. It's a family situation, and it's anchoring yourself of where you are and when you are in the church, not church calendar, but in the calendar.
Right.
So if you're not doing turkey, then how are you signifying that it's a special day of the year?
Well, allow me to retort, Mr. Greene, if that's your real name. Here's the thing. How many times do you get a bunch of your friends together and say, you know what? We could have a really good meal, or we could have a pretty average meal. How's that sound?
We do it one time a year, and we call it Thanksgiving. That's what makes it.
I mean, it is a meal where you typically have friends and family around the table.
But why would you serve the best thing you could possibly serve?
I think we're realizing here, not everybody has a budget like Chris, where we can do A5 Wagyu. No. I'm
not talking A5 Wagyu. You know what we did last year? We had in Florida, we had a shrimp boil. It was fantastic.
Good,
we all got together just like they did when the Pilgrims came over. They brought their shrimp, they brought their potatoes, they brought their corn. That's what really happened. And somehow it got erased.
You've also never had a fried turkey. You've never had a turkey that's like been injected and dropped in oil.
I have. And that was pretty good. Again, though, I'm saying you don't go to Roast Chris and order the turkey.
Zach, please break the tie here. Zach, break the tie.
I do love a shrimp boil. Those are one of my favorite meals. Last year for turkey, I made 2 turkeys. I smoked them both, which I found that's the only way to go from now on is not oven baked, but smoked. Mm-hmm. One was regular, and then the other, I did this bacon wrap weave around it. And it was fabulous.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Okay, that's good. So you had a 6 out of 10 meal when you could have had a 10 out of 10. That's fine.
This went off the rails.
All right,
really
let's get back. Let's
so
get
Thanksgiving,
back.
I like. Okay, I would like to know, what is your favorite holiday, Chris?
I love Christmas.
Yeah.
I love Christmas. It's hard to beat Christmas. I mean, everybody together, watching your kids open a present. You don't think that they didn't think they were going to get. That's great. 4th of July is great.
That is good too. Yeah.
You know,
I'm a Christmas guy. Yeah.
Election day. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring it home, Zach.
Very
Come
good.
on.
You've
let this thing go
I
off
let it
the
go
tracks.
off the rails. This is my fault.
Come on.
All right. I want to know, though, because we're going to get into Advent blocks in just a moment, why we created this, which is all about the Christmas season.
I've got a really
but I want to know
game.
from you, it feels like people are starting to celebrate Christmas earlier and earlier and earlier.
Amen.
And especially now that I hear you're a guy that likes Thanksgiving. Is it okay to hang lights prior to Thanksgiving or do Christmas songs prior to Thanksgiving, or does that need to wait?
That's a great question.
I know it is.
Okay. So I don't have super strong opinions on this, like I'm sure Chris does.
Granted, you just came out with a pretty strong opinion on the Thanksgiving, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah. On this, I didn't say about that. On this, I don't have strong opinions.
Right.
I'm not going to get mad at you if you're playing music ahead of time, Christmas music ahead of time. I'm not going to be mad if you're putting lights inside your house. I might get a little bit upset if you're doing lights outside of your house before Thanksgiving. I think maybe that's something we should agree on together. But here's what I would say, though. You should get ready for Christmas in September or October.
Okay.
Right? That's when you should be buying your Advent blocks. You should, be kind of planning when you're going to travel, who you're going to travel, what are the big moments of the season? Are you getting tickets to that light show or whatever? You got to plan early, but then let like October and November and Thanksgiving be what it is, and then really fire it up right after Thanksgiving. That's why my opinion is you should wait till after Thanksgiving, but I won't get mad at you unless your lights are outside your house.
No, I think there's wisdom in that, and also the planning early, because once you're in it, like after Thanksgiving too, it's a frenzy. We're going to talk about that in a bit. So I like that. I would say the one caveat that I do think when I moved back from Florida to Omaha, Nebraska, a little more than 2 years ago,
we kicked them out.
Yeah, they did, but it had to have been an assignment from God for me to make that move. But I will say that in colder temperature places,
right?
Like sometimes you just got to take what you can get. And if you get a really nice day in like early November, to hang the lights, you might just need to take that, because that's not guaranteed after Thanksgiving you're going to get one.
That's fair. But what about this? What about like you go into Home Depot, right?
Yeah.
And it's October. It's not even like the 1st of October, and they've got like those scary Halloween blow ups, and then like the next row they have 15 aisles of Christmas trees. I think should there be a state law that you cannot put out your Christmas stuff before you put away your Halloween stuff? I think like maybe it's confusing to me. I walk in and I'm like, what season is it?
It is hard. Yeah.
I don't know.
I like that you're letting the states make the decision. You didn't want to make it a federal law.
Well, I mean, vote for me.
Guys. I think that stores, like retail stores, have decided that there are only like 12 holidays. Now, I wish I would have kind of done the work to figure out where they were, but they definitely leap, right? Like 4th of July goes over, and it's like Halloween stuff comes out.
That's true.
Halloween, I feel like, is the one holiday that's really propelled more than any in the last 2 decades.
Yeah, it's growing. It almost takes over back to school. It's like, I don't know. You'll find your pencils. Here's a pumpkin, though. Yeah,
exactly. Take a jack-o'-lantern with you.
It's like July 4th, back to school, Halloween, Christmas, Valentine's, Easter bunnies. And then we're back to the 4th of July. I mean, that's like, I don't think I even missed any of the retail stores.
Well, you missed the Frozen movie whenever it comes out every year. That season. But.
That's true. Frozen season.
But hey, man, I actually love that you've done something in this space, Advent space, because I think there's a huge gap. We write a lot of 40-day challenges that fit really well in other seasons, but usually not in Advent. And so first, like, our listeners may not all understand, like, what is Advent? Let's back up and talk about what Advent is and why this season's so important. And then I want to talk about what you've got.
Yeah, so you do feel the irony of you asking me, someone who has not been in a liturgical church over a long period of time, to define what Advent is and explain to everyone. So I'm going to give a little shot here. But we wrote an article. It's on our website. Chris,
but in fairness, you did create Advent blocks. So
yeah, that's true.
I mean, come on.
It's for people who know what Advent is and for people who need to know what Advent is.
Oh, that's cool.
And so it's for everybody. Our Advent blocks do 25 days, right? Much like the Advent calendars that will count down and give you chocolate. That's not what Advent is for many, 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 many people who are in churches where they're doing candles. My church growing up didn't do Advent candles, where it was the 4 Sundays and Christmas. And our family has done that. And then just last year, we participated in that with a new church that we're a part of. And so we're actually on the whole church side of things, kind of leaning into that. And then also every year we have a couple of people that will email us and tell us that we got it wrong by doing 25 days. Yeah. It's like, hey, that 25 days, not the Christian version of Advent. We're like, we get it. But we promise your kids will like this. And they will ask you to read and tell them about Jesus. So, it's the time of year where the church takes to anticipate Jesus's birth and his coming to earth to stay. So it's, in my mind, it's, the counter to Lent in the spring. So Zach, why don't you tell me what I've missed here in my definition of what Advent is and what's good?
No, I never correct our guests. That's why you're the expert on the Red Letter Disciple. No, I think it's awesome. I think, and part of the dichotomy or the difference is there's 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas Eve and that service and Christmas even. And those 4 Sundays never fall on the same dates. And so that's where if you're trying to do anything with Advent, like commercially or even in retail, you've kind of got to just do the 25 days of December. And so it's the same period, the same season, and you hit on those things and that period of waiting, that period of anticipation in liturgical churches, that many of them will focus as they're doing the Advent wreath on those 4 words of hope, peace, joy, and love. And so it's really just getting ready for Christmas and for the birth of Jesus. And so you guys have done a great job in helping people celebrate this time, this season. And so I want to dive into that. But I first want to tell you kind of what I think and what I've noticed in the Advent Christmas season. I think you mentioned it earlier. Like, it just feels like a frenzy.
Absolutely.
And it feels kind of ironic because, like, on Thursday, that Thanksgiving, we sit around the table with our turkeys, because that's how you do it. And we talk about what we're grateful for. And then the next day, ironically, we spend more money than any day of the year.
Yep.
So gratitude on Thursday, consumerism and greed on Friday, where we're fighting in Walmart, pick up lines to get the items. There's only a few left. And so there's just this frenzy then all of the way until Christmas Eve. And it's like this month-long race with parties and, like you said, light shows and all of this stuff. And I'm exhausted as just a person. Then you throw in, I carry, and so does Chris and many of our listeners, the title of pastor as well. And I've got to plan for arguably the most important service of the year alongside of Easter. Most pastors would say those are the two. And so I'm just exhausted at the end of it. So that's my story. And I know a lot of others as well, but I'm assuming like this came out of a personal need for you too.
Well,
so I'd love to know how that came about.
The other thing I would add to that long soliloquy is this, that we're also parents. Yeah. And so who usually gets left in the dust? You know what I mean? Like, I felt so guilty about that in the past. Like, I've spent so much time getting ready for this huge service. And then my wife and my kids are back at home while I'm spending these long hours, So, help us out, man.
So, how did Advent blocks come to be?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the reason it came to be for us is comes out of that same tension that you're talking about. I actually think that's why I think more and more people are aware of Advent every year, because Advent blocks are so amazing. Just kidding. More and more people are aware of Advent every year because there's like a cultural Christmas, and then there's a Christian Christmas. And that's part of what some of those people that are emailing us are kind of harping on, is like, man, let's make sure we draw the line. And I think that families have to, in some way, put a marker down in their house that says, everybody's doing this, but everybody's not doing this part of it. And this is actually the main part of it. And that's really what happened in our story. So I think it was 2018.
Okay.
When my daughter, Kara, who was, I should do the math, was 6 or 7 at the time. I think she was 6. It was December 23rd. And she said to me and my wife, Kristen, Mommy and Daddy, you say that Christmas is all about Jesus, but it feels like Christmas is all about presents.
Oof.
And yeah, I mean, it was like a knife in the back because it was December 23rd. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with that? And
just wait until next year, baby.
and the year after that, and the year after that, because we were like, man, we did something wrong. The thing that I reflect on with that is we actually were doing a reading of some sorts centering around the birth of Jesus, like through the month. But it wasn't enough. It didn't compete enough with the anticipation of every time we put a new present under the tree. So here's the thing. We still wanted to put presents under the tree.
Sure.
So the next November, I kind of do a search online, trying to find something that's going to be center of the home, kind of everyday push, kind of really rival everything else that's happening. And if not even kind of like benefit from all of the anticipation and excitement that's happening, but put all of that focus in one spot on Jesus being born. So looked, couldn't find anything. And I like working with wood. I kind of started drawing a couple of ways that some pieces of wood could go on a mantle and move around. I had 3 options. I showed my wife, Kristen. I said, what do you think? And she pointed at the one in the middle, which is what you have right there in front of you now. And you can get on GoodKind.shop. And she said, do that one and call it Advent blocks. That first year we were like writing stories the same day we were reading them. The blocks were 3.5 inches large. We were painting on them because we didn't already have them like painted or created. And anyway, we get to the 24th and 25th. And the excitement on those days about those stories and about Jesus' birth was rivaling the excitement about what was under the tree and the presents.
Wow.
And you're like, wow, so this is special.
That's awesome, bro. So take me back to that moment. Like I can imagine I would, I think sometimes at Red Letter, we believe kids not just can be disciples. Kids are disciples.
Right.
And sometimes they have a really keen way of understanding and saying things that maybe we wouldn't say to one another, but in a way that helps us understand like, oh yeah, geez, we are a bit off in that. And so I think like first off, your daughter at least had to have some sort of faith background in the home and, in church and other places to even ask that question. So like, that's good on you. But how did that feel in that moment to hear that from your daughter that Christmas feels more about presents than it does about Jesus?
I'll take that one. Not good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, it was like a knife in the back. It's kind of like a gut punch in that, we were trying, right? I appreciate you for kind of pointing that out and that encouragement, and that. To be said, like I bet most of the people who are listening to your podcast are trying too.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about our faith, though, because right after I kind of get hit with the gut punch, is I then have the opportunity to turn the corner into grace and say, hey, God does want us to engage. God does want us to continue to grow. God does want us to continue to disciple our family. We've noticed something here that we need to change. Now we have an opportunity to change it. It's not like that one moment was a failure that can't be overcome or worked on. In some ways, it was a piece of information that we needed to act on.
Well, and it's not like she was 19 and saying, all through my life, it was always about presents. It's like, okay, this is the second quarter of the game. We still have a chance to change our offensive scheme and make this better. You know what I mean?
Well, if you're not Nebraska football, then yes, you would have a chance.
They still have a program? I don't know.
Barely. It's sad. But anyway, so awesome. So now you're painting on these blocks. You're writing stories, telling stories, kind of figuring this out at your home. It's not a product for anybody yet. It's just something you're doing at the home. But what it's turned into, right, is it's not just telling, I think, the story of Christmas, but kind of the whole Bible from front to end. Is that right?
Can I break into these real quick? Let me. So go to YouTube right now if you are listening to this on iTunes, because I want to show you what exactly we're talking about. And so I've got a question for you. So I go to block number 1, right? I go to block number 1. It says, and if you're listening to this, we have, these are really nice. They're 1 through 25 because he messed up. But anyway, I turn around the number 1 block and it's got an apple on it. And then it's got an E. And so what does that mean? Talk to me there, Goose.
Well, so how it works is you hand the blocks to your kids.
Here you go, Zach.
Thank you.
And they dump them out.
They dump them all out.
They always do. And then it's very intuitive. It's very intuitive. They line them up 1 through 25. Like we literally say, hand these to your kids and watch what happens.
Okay.
They line them up 1 through 25. And then there's a star block and there's a world block. It looks like the Earth.
Okay.
And those start on day 1 and day 25.
Okay.
And then every day you read a story. So on the first day, you read the first story. It is about Adam and Eve.
Okay.
And
which is why the apple's on there.
block and you turn it a quarter turn and it reveals an image that corresponds to the story. That what's really cool is even if you have really, really young readers, there's actually a picture of that in the book. And so they can match it very, very easily. Cool. And then the star stays on top of that block. Then the very next day, you read the second story and you turn it and it's a rainbow. And Zach, what story do you think that is?
I'm guessing that might be the flood.
Yeah, it is. And so you read that story, it corresponds to the story in the book, and then you move the star on top of that image. And then go on and so forth as you keep going through the day. So you see there's this approximation as every day as the number turns and you reveal another image, there's an approximation of that star to the earth on the other far end, representing God coming to earth.
Okay.
And so that there's actually a visual anticipation of that star moving towards the earth. Every day you just really want to turn that block. You want to see what that image is. And it's really cool because, if your kids, 7 to 9 or older than that, what will end up happening is they'll start remembering the stories by the icons. So, we totally stumbled into all of the magic that I'm describing right now. There was a little bit of strategy of how everything kind of works out, but it's beautiful as it moves all the way across. And then on the 24th, what you do is you actually turn all those images one more time. And so that E on that first block is the first letter in the word Emmanuel. So it says Emmanuel, God with us, is what it then reveals on Christmas Eve. And it's so exciting for the family, and it walks all the way through. Chris, our author, did an amazing job. I think it's not until the 17th.
Not this Chris, by the way.
Not that Chris, another guy. All right. Not until the 17th that it actually starts being the New Testament stories.
Okay.
But he does so many good things in the stories. There's a refrain at the end of each day that everybody in the family starts repeating. That builds the anticipation. The refrain changes on the 17th because there's a quickening to the story. It's really special. And my girls now Kara in particular, will pray things that they have read in those stories.
Oh, that's awesome.
Times. They'll remember things. They'll be hearing a story at church, or we'll be reading something at home, and they're like, "Oh, that's this story because this and this happens."
Nice. That's cool.
They're really learning the story of the whole Bible as it relates to God's presence with His people.
And that's an amazing. So many people, I think, just need that deeper biblical, even if it's just once a year, to remind this is the grand story, the grand arc of it. We've lost Chris for the rest of the episode. He's now playing with blocks, which is good. That's exactly what you want. So, serious
question though. Like I've been working with youth for 20 some years, and what I get a lot of times is that the parents, they don't feel equipped and they don't know where to start. And what I like about this is that you're kind of giving you're going from not many Advent kits start from, the garden and then go here. I think that's really cool. And you're basically, I always say, man, with little kids, I hope they have the foundational stories that they can grow their faith upon. And I think this really does a great job of that, man.
Yeah, it's cool. And Clayton, I feel like some of the things that we experience in the Advent season, that frenzied pace, the busyness and the exhaustion and the hurry that is especially in that holiday season, I feel like that's kind of a microcosm of what we're starting to experience the rest of the year too. Is that what you're seeing and what you're feeling? And how can this something like this help us in this frenzied hurry, what feels exhausting? I mean, more people are burnt out than ever. So how can something like this help us with that hurried pace that a lot of us are living?
And also, you're 9 and 6. That's very confusing. You should have put a line under one of those or something. Come on,
man. You
Wow.
You jumped ahead of my coming joke with that joke.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, Advent Box helps with that. But you know what helps more? Eating turkey on Thanksgiving.
I'm a heathen. I can't help it.
Yeah. But it's in all seriousness, like I do think that we have to fight to even pay attention to analog and human and natural things anymore, right? I mean, we live in a 24/7 digitally accessible world.
So true, man.
So to do something that is not, on a screen,
right,
is different. To do something that involves other people that you're in the same room with is different. And to do something that involves the seasons and the natural world that God has put us in is different, right?
Yeah.
I actually think that we need to be fighting to do those things. I think that those elements are a lot of what it does and happens in the church. And I think that probably, 50 years ago, whenever Chris was born, it was a different world.
Yeah.
It was a different world, right? Where analog and nature and people in the same room with you it kind of came standard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come standard anymore. And I don't want to be one of those people who just is afraid of the new technology or afraid of the next thing.
Sure.
But I do think in these specific instances, it is kind of pulling us into a pace of things that we don't know that we don't notice. And so stopping to mark holidays and being intentional about it is really, really important. Ruth Haley Barton says, it's a phrase or maybe it's a chapter of one of her books. It talks about the spiritual practice of paying attention. And that actually is, I would say that is a spiritual practice we all need to be practicing, which is paying attention to what's happening where you are and what spiritual things are happening in that place. And stuff like this hopefully points us in that direction, as well as, 40-day guides like you guys create.
Yeah, exactly. I think creating that space, and that's, you said it earlier, and I think there's wisdom in it, that some of the best practices around the Christmas season are probably to help line up your calendar in September and October for the Christmas season and to get ready, because if you don't, it just overtakes you. And so I've noticed that in my own family. We've done good and bad. And so there was a 2-year period. It's been 4 or 5 years though, probably 3 or 4 maybe, but there's a 2-year period where I felt like, man, after this consumeristic, frenzied, cultural pace that we run, we actually went on 2 family mission trips over the New Year holiday just to kind of recenter, to get out of that mindset and to start the new year in the right mindset. And that was like so awesome for us to just go and serve. One time we did hurricane disaster relief. Another time we went to Uganda as a part of a vision trip. I was like, man, those things were awesome. And I haven't done those the last 3 years. And it's like, I liked doing that. I like saying this is the good stuff, but now it's the bad. And it's like, if I don't put that in, if I don't intentionally schedule that, get ahead of our family's calendar even, we just won't do those things. Yep. And that's what I think you're saying is, we can put these moments in and create these practices that at least for an Advent blocks, at least for a day, we get a few minutes of this. But it's more than that. It's how do we do that in the everyday that I think is really, really awesome. So cool. So as a dad, so you flip from not just this, but I actually think you help with the very same thing I'm just mentioning. One of my, actually I love, we put a new product that you have. It's called the Sabbath Box. We have it in our mudroom right as you walk in to the home. And it's a box that essentially for us, we put our phones in there and we're getting used to it. So we're not experts at it yet, but several times, we've thrown phones in there for a couple of hours, said we're going to have screen-free time. And so talk to me about the Sabbath Box and how that hits the same stuff we're talking about, but on a more,
Also, if I could follow up to that, Clayton, I am staying at Zach's house right now, and he's got like about 12 remotes and can never find the right remote to turn on the TV. So usually I just Are
you putting it in the Sabbath Box?
I say to hit you, let's just forget about the phones in the Sabbath box. You're not going to do that. But maybe if you put the remotes in the Sabbath box,
then I'll know where they are.
Then we could actually play Jackbox before midnight. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well,
inner turmoil here. Sorry about that, Clayton. Yeah.
With the Sabbath box or the remote box or the phone box, our team, when we, accidentally created Advent blocks, we then created Easter blocks, which I think Chris's writing on that is even better. We then started to reverse engineer why it was so helpful to families. We had people saying, I'd tried Advent things before, but I'd never started one and actually finished it. And in this situation, I finished it. Right. Yeah. So there's something about the tangible nature of it. The number on it, like, makes you want to turn it. Right. When you hand your kids something and say, hey, you can play with this. And if you ask me to play with this with you, I will. Mm-hmm. I mean, but that's essentially what we did with Advent blocks accidentally, right? So they've almost become little accountability devices. So we kind of reverse engineered what was successful about it. And we said, but we have other spiritual practices that we want to do. How can we apply some of these things that we've learned to that as well? And that's where the Sabbath box came from. We're like, we really want to do this more consistently. We want to have a way to make sure that our family is being pulled into it. We do a little bit of teaching with it. It also cues us every week in order to remember and actually participate in it. So we went through multiple different iterations of it, but that box that you're talking about, the top of it flips back and forth.
Yeah.
And one side says create and cultivate, reminding us throughout the week of the good of work. And then on whatever you intend to be your Sabbath, you flip that box top to the other side and it says stop and enjoy, reminding us that God calls us to stop and enjoy him and all the good things that he has made. There's a prayer on the back of the box that you can read at the end of the weekend or at the end of your Sabbath, however long you are doing that. It is a box that you can actually put your phones in it. But it actually did end up being important that we made it so you can hang it on the wall, because those cues that remind us to do things like that, it's really important that we trip over them, that we or you bump your head into it, depending on where you put it in your mudroom. Great location, by the way, because it's something that you're walking through and you're doing stuff when you're in there. Ours is in our kitchenette area, but it's facing right into the kitchen.
Yeah.
The location where you put something like that matters. That's another thing that we found. Like, the location of where you put your Bible will change how much you read.
Yep.
I mean, there's small things like this that we can do in terms of cueing ourselves to spiritual practice, that we're trying to create more and more products that will help with that.
It's good. And yeah, I'm with you. Like, I'm not anti where the world's going. I know that there's some difficult things on these devices. There's also some great opportunities on this digital and these new devices that we've never had before. It's cool that you and I can have a conversation in 2023. I can see your face, and eventually this will get onto the YouTube and everything else. And like, that's amazing that all that's available. And so I'm not one to say that I'm against where everything is headed, but I do think that there will be more and more of a push and a need to stay analog in a few areas. We in the last season we had Jay Kim on, who wrote Analog Church and Analog Christian, and there's just this need in a very hyper digital world to at times let those things go, and that's what I think your products do such a good job of reminding us, is that there is something more behind all of this, that if we don't intentionally take the time, we'll miss. But when we take the time, it's super rich and incredibly fulfilling and rewarding. And so that's so cool, man. So I'd love to flip a little bit, and because you're in ministry, but now you're a spiritual entrepreneur, and I think we share that. So I'd love to know, because it's different being a pastor in a church and then somebody who's, helping the kingdom, but in a more business-minded mindset. And so what are you learning as a spiritual entrepreneur that you didn't or haven't learned, I would say, working in the church?
I got this. Every church wants everything for free.
This is true, my friend. Most churches.
We do offer Advent blocks through our local church program, almost for free, not really for free, but less than what our business advisors tell us we should.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Because we want to help in that way. I think for me, it goes back to the same thing about attention. It's really hard when you're running a business to get someone's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone walks into a church service, you're battling for their attention a little bit, but not that much.
Mm.
But as we battle for people's attention, whether it's we're trying to send them an email to encourage them, or we are trying to say something on social media, or we run ads, try to get people to see what we're doing and engage with Advent blocks and other things that we're doing at GoodKind. But it's really, really hard to have someone pay attention to something that you actually think will be helpful for them. So I think in some ways that's helped me be reflective on myself about paying attention to all the things that are happening around me.
Yeah.
Because to break through into someone's consciousness to actually let something be helpful is really, really hard from a business perspective. It's made me even a little bit, though social media and ads and things help us grow the business and help us reach more families to help. It makes me a little bit more wary of those spaces or maybe more aware as I enter into those spaces about what is happening and what people are trying to do. And that some people who are really, really going to send something helpful are trying to find me there as well. So I think it's all about.
That's good, man. Yeah. I think what I've seen a lot too is, I think in the church space, we can take for granted sometimes why people are there and just assume that they understand why they're a part of their church. Whereas in the business space or, a spiritual entrepreneur space, like we're constantly having to think of what's in it for the other person. Like what's in it for me is the number one advertising question, that you answer. And I think churches don't always think that way. What's in it for the person that's sitting here? They can kind of come from a mindset of what's in it for the church. And that's fine. God is, the church is God's bride, and we ought to think about the goodness and the overall collective of the church, but it's made up of people. And so that's really helped me see from a spiritual entrepreneur, even on the church side, of we need to make sure that people always understand what's in it for them.
Yeah.
So why would we do something like this, right? Why would we pause for 25 days to review the story of God when there's X, Y, and Z competing for my attention? And the more we can answer those questions, the better. So I love it. Love it. Love it. Cool, man. So what's next? So it changed from Advent. When did it change from a product, which I heard you say earlier, we accidentally created it, Advent blocks. Now it's called GoodKind. That's the company, GoodKind.shop.
.shop.
When did it turn into an actual business? And what's the meaning behind GoodKind?
Yeah, so 2019 is when we did it with our family for the first time. 2020, it became a business. We're trying to give it to our church and get it out to some more people. And then, so it was already a business, but then in 2021, we released Easter blocks and started doing some of that reverse engineering. We flipped in 2021 to the name GoodKind. And the goal at this point is we say we want to help people develop the good kind of habits and holiday practices. So we have some things to help you with habits. We have something called sticky prayers that help you to pause and pray throughout the day. Something called Gratitude that helps you with a little bit of variety and gratefulness in your table conversations. So those are more like habits. Sabbath Box, habit. And then we also have holiday celebrations. So that's Easter and Advent and other things like that. So we help people practice the good kind of habits and holiday celebrations. We just want people to engage with God, because we believe if you're engaging with God, like the meaningful moments in your life are just going to shoot through the roof. It's
good, bro. And love connecting with you and all that you're doing for the kingdom. And so, hey, we ask all our guests this question to challenge. At the end of the day, we want this to be a podcast to challenge everybody to be a greater disciple of Jesus. So if you could issue one challenge, drop one challenge on our listeners, that's something practically they can do this week, what would it be for them to grow as a disciple?
Better not be turkey.
One? Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, just
one there, but I love the callback.
Yeah.
Just one thing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to put 4 sub bullets in it, because the one thing that you can do, because I believe when this is releasing in the fall, the one thing you could do is, like we've already talked about, is prepare for Christmas now. That interestingly, it seems very practical and not very spiritual, but it's actually very, very, very spiritual, right? So if you want to prepare for Christmas now so that Christmas doesn't become cultural Christmas, that it actually is Christian Christmas and that your family is focused on Jesus. So here are the bullet points for that. One, don't feel like you need to reinvent the wheel every year. While you're planning this Christmas, don't feel like you have to new things are fun, but the things you remember from your childhood Christmas are not the things you did once. It's the things you did 7 times.
Oh, wow. Good point.
Engage with what your church is doing, and your church should be doing Advent blocks. So you should tell them about that because we sell it to them at a discount, but engage with what your church is doing because Christian Christmas shouldn't be done alone. It shouldn't just be done at the store. It should be done with a faith family. Make sure that right now in the fall, you pick the most important things that you're going to do this Christmas and only do those things. Do you realize that it's okay to say no to a work Christmas party if you would rather be at your church Christmas party or whatever that might be? And then here's the hardest one. Decide how you're going to travel and when you're going to travel and communicate that to your family now, not at the Thanksgiving dinner table. And you will thank me for it because emotions are less high now than they will be in November. So plan for Christmas now. That's the most spiritual thing you can do this week.
Cool. It sounds like you may have said those bullet points from your own experience.
We came up with those for our team this year, and it's actually on our podcast, the GoodKind Podcast.
Nice. Very cool. All right, listeners, if you take up that challenge and you're prepping for Christmas now this week, doing those 4 things, let us know. #RedLetterDisciple. We want to cheer you on and support you in that cause. All right, Clayton, before you head on out, I usually let Chris have the final say with the guest. And he's prepared something specifically for you.
So yes, I always
beware.
I always do a game or a little segment that I specifically make for each person. Yeah. Hours go into this. Clayton Greene of GoodKind.shop. You really have done it all. You've created these fantastic blocks. You're an executive pastor, a director at the Summit Collaborative for Summit Church with 49 churches. I have 2 kids. Sometimes I don't even remember their names, but I love them dearly. Clayton, you're an entrepreneur, and clearly you have struck it here. I am also an entrepreneur, and I have some ideas. I have some ideas that I would like to pitch to go on to the GoodKind.shop.
Oh, wow.
Shop.
All right.
So I want to, here's the thing. First things first, you do some stuff with kids, right? So do I. I worked with kids for a long time. And I think we can all agree that some of the stories that are in the Bible are really rough for kids. Like we tell the Noah's Ark story, right? But we don't tell the story about all the people that died in the flood. We just talk about the 2x2 of the animals and the rainbow. And the rainbow. We don't talk about people drowning. But that's not it. Let's talk about the 10 plagues. 10 plagues, right? So 10 plagues. I have a 10 plague finger puppet set that I would like to sell on the GoodKind.shop website. Imagine this. This is just a prototype, okay? Check this out. Hi, I'm plague number 1. And this is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I'm Lord. With the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water of the Nile, and it's going to be changed into blood. The fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink, and the Egyptians will not be able to drink it. Okay, so that's just blood. That's the finger puppet blood. All right? Hold on. Don't say yes or no.
So you have 10 of these?
I have 10. I'm not going to go through it all. It's only a 40-minute podcast.
Are you wanting them to be blocks?
No, they're finger puppets. They're finger puppets.
Okay.
Like that would be blood, and I'm going to have Cam put up. I have an image for it right here. I've got blood.
Your business pitching skills are fantastic.
I've got let's see. I've got boils. I've got one that's boils. It's very boily.
Locusts killing
locusts. I've got the locust. I sent this to Cam, and hopefully we'll be able to put this up. But this is maybe we'll do it. We'll fix it in post. All right, let's go to the next one. Don't say yes or no. Okay, don't say yes.
Does he have to pick one of these? Is that the goal?
Yeah. I would like you. And
as part of being on this podcast,
right.
He agreed.
He agreed.
That he would add
listen,
one.
We sold his blocks. He's going to sell my stuff. All right. So we'll do like a 70-30 cut. Never mind. We'll work out the details later. Let's go to the next one. Okay. Let's see. Oh, you have the gratitude cube, right? You have the gratitude.
Yes.
I have decided to take back something from, they have that 8-ball. It's satanic. I don't like that.
Okay.
Now I have the what would Jesus say cube. So for instance, Clayton, ask me a question, and then I'm going to roll the cube and see what Jesus would say. Ask me any question, yes or no. Yes or no.
A yes or no question.
Yeah.
Is it going to rain later today?
Great. Let me roll the what would Jesus say cube, okay? Matthew 5:3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. All right. So maybe you don't like that one. Maybe, one more. Let me try one more.
Is that the Beatitude?
Beatitudes.
Oh, much better name. That's
okay. He doesn't get my.
Some people don't have the chops to be a spiritual entrepreneur.
Listen, this one is gold. You know how Tic Tacs are for pagans?
What? I didn't know that.
You know how Tic Tacs are for pagans?
TikTok?
No, Tic Tacs.
The mints?
The mints are clearly for pagans.
okay.
Okay. I have spearmint testaments. And on the package, it says pass the word. And it's got a verse on each testament.
Yeah.
So when you give it to somebody who's also a pagan, you can say, hey, God bless you. That's a testament.
That's the winner.
Before they eat it, they look at it. And we had to pick short ones. So for instance, because the mint's only so big, Jesus wept. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to save him, but testaments right there.
That's the one. I think that's it. That's the thing. Coming to you a year from now.
Testaments.
Plus another 10 years. Testaments. I'm pretty sure we'd get sued if we did that, by the way.
I feel like that
exists.
Thing already.
Testaments?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
I feel like I saw that in the old Christian bookstore.
I didn't know.
I think you're ripping this
Pass.
off. Are any of these ideas actually original?
No, I just Googled them.
All right. Well, I don't know if any of these will make it on there.
All right. Testaments.
All right, Clayton. Hey, man, we had some fun with you, bro. If people want to connect with you or any of the stuff you've talked about, where can they find you?
Yeah, everything you can find at GoodKind.shop. That's where you can find the local church program. You can find social media stuff, and you can find all the products we've talked about today, including Advent Blocks.
And testaments.
Everything but the last 3 that are fake products. You can find
those have not been released yet.
Very cool, man. Hey, thanks again for what you're doing in this space and helping a lot of families and a lot of churches at the same time.
What about
remember what it's all
Jesus
about,
is my coach statue? I don't know. We could do that. I don't know. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, blessings, brother.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it got heated talking turkey early, but I think we redeemed this episode. Clayton and his team at GoodKind.shop have all sorts of products to help you grow in your faith. And so check out the links in the show notes at redletterpodcast.com. At that link, you'll also find what I mentioned at the very beginning, a free gift for pastors and church leaders, that free downloadable PDF called the Super Simple, Easily Doable 5-Step Guide to Growing Your Small Groups. Next week, we're having a really important conversation on the Red Letter Disciple as we welcome Jemar Tisby to the show. Jemar is the author of the wildly influential Color of Compromise. He's a historian, an author, a podcaster, and he helps people become lifelong advocates for racial justice. And I love his work because it's filled with historical examples and helps us see some things that are so important. So don't miss next week's episode of Red Letter Disciple. How do you not miss it? The best thing you can do, hit that little plus sign, which is either going to be follow or subscribe. That way it shows up automatically on your feed next week, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Did you know we got all these videos on YouTube? And sometimes you're going to see some stuff on the YouTube that's pretty funny that you might miss in just the audio. So really grateful to have you today. And come on back next week for Red Letter Disciple.